You take a guy who just had a boxing match that looks like a sparring match with a 58-year-old Mike Tyson, and then you're going to fight one of the absolute scariest knockout artists in the heavyweight division.
Joe Rogan didn't hold back, calling Jake Paul's challenge to Anthony Joshua the dumbest thing he's ever heard. Meanwhile, Joe Rogan dismisses the whole idea, saying that even a rehydration clause won't help Jake Paul. Anthony Joshua won't come in drained, he'll just cut the weight properly, do extra cardio, and end up even more dangerous. Rogan says AJ would be furious that a YouTuber is calling him out, and that anger alone makes the matchup absurd. Jake has only faced one real boxer in Tommy Fury, and Rogan makes it clear stepping in with Joshua is a completely different universe.
And there's some sort of a rehydration clause. Listen, kids, it ain't gonna matter. You know, there's not a chance that Anthony Joshua is not going to just lose the weight beforehand. He's not going to come in drained. What he's going to do is just do extra cardio, and that's just going to make him more dangerous. He's going to be terrifying, and he's going to have a lot to prove. He's going to be very angry that Jake Paul wants to fight him. Very upset that this YouTuber who's fought Tommy Fury, who's a legit boxer, and, you know, a couple other guys that were legit boxers. That's it.
Joe further points out that Jake Paul has never faced anyone even close to Anthony Joshua's level. He reminds people that Jake's opponents were Nate Robinson, a basketball player, and other people who were not on the same level as him. Even Anderson Silva, whom Jake dropped, was in his 40s and far past his prime. Rogan stresses that this is nothing like facing a 34-year-old Anthony Joshua, a genuinely terrifying heavyweight athlete in his physical prime.
He's fought Ben Askren, who was really a wrestler. You know, he fought Tyron Woodley, who was an elite MMA fighter, but, you know, not an elite boxer. He fought Nate Robinson, who was a basketball player. At least he's fought these guys. He fought Anderson Silva, and he dropped Anderson Silva, and Anderson Silva was a really good striker, but also in his 40s, you know, different time. It's, you know, not the same guy he used to be. This is a 34-year-old Anthony Joshua. This is a terrifying human being. Terrifying.
Joe Rogan says there is no world where Anthony Joshua doesn't come in trying to smash Jake Paul, because that's what he does. And anything less will make people question if the fight is fixed. But he adds that if Jake somehow turns up with real boxing fundamentals, sharper movement, tighter technique, and elite coaching behind him, maybe even someone like Usyk or Lomachenko's father than things could genuinely get interesting.
I don't think that's going to happen with this fight. I don't think there's any chance in the world. Knowing what Anthony Joshua is a specialist at, he's a specialist at putting knuckles through your brain, you know, and that's what he's going to try to do to Jake Paul. And anything other than that, from a 34-year-old Anthony Joshua, will make us all think it's a fixed fight. Whether or not Joshua can do it, whether or not, I mean, Jake Paul shocks the world and shows us that he really does know how to box really well and moves really good and uses his jab and blows us all away with a strategy and a lot of footwork and movement, and brings Usyk into his camp, or Lomachenko's dad, even better, who's the guy who trained.
Nikisa Bedarian explains that the main reason they wanted a major event in 2025 wasn't Jake Paul or Netflix, it was all the other fighters and teams who had been preparing for a huge Q4 show. He adds that they spoke with Netflix about potential opponents and discussed options with Jake. And in typical Jake Paul fashion, he pushed for the biggest names possible, from Terence Crawford and Ryan Garcia to Tommy Fury and even Anthony Joshua.
The number one driver of why I wanted to have an event in 2025 was not about Jake, was not about Netflix, was not about me or MVP Jake and I. It was around all the other fighters. It was around the teams of Jake, the teams on MVP side, everyone who was looking forward to having this massive event in Q4 of 2025. So that's number one. Number two, we had multiple discussions with Netflix to see a list of opponents that they were in favor of, talk to Jake about what he was willing to do. And, you know, Jake Paul being Jake Paul, he wanted to focus on the biggest, baddest names possible. That included Terence Crawford, that included Ryan Garcia, that included Tommy Fury, that included Anthony Joshua.
Nikisa says Netflix had several contenders in mind, names like Crawford, Ryan Garcia, Tommy Fury, but Joshua was their top pick. Jake leaned toward Joshua too, especially after Ryan was ruled out. He says what really sparked things was Jake's claim in his March podcast that he could take Joshua down. Most people, including Eddie Hearn, thought it was just hype. But Nikisen says Jake was serious, and that belief is what sealed the deal.
From a Netflix perspective, they were very keen on Joshua. They were interested on Crawford. They were interested in Ryan Garcia as potential opponents for Jake Paul. They were interested in Tommy Fury at some level as well. And the one that Jake gravitated towards was Anthony Joshua. Once it became clear Ryan couldn't do the fight as well, Ryan was also something that he was interested in doing. And the deal came together mostly because Jake mentioned this as of March of this year, right? That's the first time he was on a podcast and said, I think I can beat Anthony Joshua. Everyone laughed. At the time, Eddie Hearn said this is another, media attention-seeking moment for Jake Paul. I made it clear then to Eddie and to the media, Jake was serious and we wanted to do it in 2026.
Furthermore, Eddie Hearn initially brushed off Jake Paul's claim that he could beat Anthony Joshua, calling it another attention-seeking media stunt. At the time, he didn't take it seriously, seeing it as typical hype rather than a legitimate challenge, even though Jake had been publicly confident about the matchup. Look, as the fight gets closer, more and more people are thinking, is he really going to do this? And he'll look stupid if he doesn't now. But he's going to do it because Roy Jones came out yesterday saying, yeah, I think he can win. I mean, this wasn't a Tyson Fury line, this was Roy Jones actually being serious. And those kinds of comments feed into Jake Paul's belief that he can beat Anthony Joshua. So, we're going to find out December 19th. Wade Clemens reacts strongly to the sidemen discussing Jake versus Joshua, calling out how off-base their comparisons are. He emphasizes that Anthony Joshua dominates in every level, size, rage, power, and criticizes them for even mentioning Logan Paul in the conversation. He jokingly tells them to stick to their usual content like Minecraft or Among Us instead of trying to analyze real boxing.
Oh, he's got the reach, he's got the length, he's got the power.
But okay,
he wins on every level.
I know.
Logan had stats on you,
Paul
though.
doing?
Am I right in thinking that Logan had most stats against you? I know it's not.
No, it's different. No, it's different.
Two-time not even close to the same thing. Vicstar, I love you, but don't you dare ever open your mouth and say that shit again, buddy. This man said, yeah, but Logan Paul had a lot of attributes on you, KSI. Shut your delusional up. You were talking about Anthony Joshua. What? This is why the sidemen don't need to do boxing segments on the pod, bro. They need to just let KSI say what he's gonna say and move on to like, hey, what's new in Minecraft? Or who's the imposter? Or whatever it is that they do. Don't go here, bro.
Liam Smith reflects with excitement but caution, saying he's buzzing about the Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua fight. He notes that if you're not Jake, you could see him get knocked out early, likely in the second round. For Joshua fans, he hopes for a straightforward fight, highlighting Joshua's record against champions and his impact in British boxing. Meanwhile, British boxing is just hoping he walks away with the easy money this fight promises.
I'm buzzing with it because if you hate Jake Paul, you're going to see him get knocked out in the second round. But if you love Joshua, you want him to have an easy fight, do you know what I mean? Back to back, he's fought loads of champions. I think he's changed British boxing, and I hope he does collect that easy money.
Spencer Oliver says Anthony Joshua will be in peak shape for the fight, noting he's naturally athletic around 245 pounds and moves better at that weight. While acknowledging Jake Paul's efforts and giving him respect for stepping up, Oliver emphasizes the huge gap in experience and skill between the two, suggesting Joshua could almost look past Paul due to the difference in their boxing levels.
You know, when you're talking about comparisons, these two guys are worlds apart. You have to respect Jake Paul for stepping up to the plate and actually going through with this fight, because I'm still trying to give my head a wobble on this whole situation, going, what are you actually doing?
In other news, Anthony Joshua says he requested 12 months to prepare for his next fight, and now 3 months in, he's fully focused on fight prep. Rather than training with Ben Davidson in London, he joined Team Usyk in Spain, calling Usyk one of the best in the world. Joshua then praises the insight he's gained from Usyk and his team, describing the experience as challenging, rewarding, and phenomenal.
But I said I need 12 months, and now we're here. So 12 months out of the game, and from September 21st, if you think about it back then, to now, December, that's 3 months. So most people take about 8 to 12 weeks to prepare for a fight. So this was like a preparation for a fight, basically. So this will be my first prep and fight in December. So no, I won't be trained by Ben Davison. I said that London's a bit distracting for me. So I was invited to train with Team Usyk. So I've been in Spain. We've been doing some good training out in Spain. And I think he's one of the best in the world. Not I think, he is one of the best in the world. And it's not all down to him, it's also down to his team that's around him. So I linked up with them, and getting an insight to how someone who's achieved so much has been phenomenal, man. It's been a great experience and it's very challenging.
Liam adds that Jake Paul is in a win-win situation because it's all about views for him. Even if he loses in the first round, he can still claim the experience of being in the ring with Anthony Joshua. On the other hand, Joshua is under intense pressure. He must knock Jake out quickly to maintain credibility. Otherwise, people will question the legitimacy of the fight, making it a risky bout rather than just an easy sparring match.
He's a YouTuber, isn't he? So like, they want them views. His life's been about views, and taking this fight with Joshua is views for him. So even if he loses in first round, he can always say I've been in with Joshua.
Yeah.
So he's at a win-win. It's Anthony Joshua what's under pressure. He's got to knock him out fast.
Does he have to knock out Jake Paul in the first round
100%.
to be able to come out of any credit?
100%, he's got to. And if he don't, everyone's going to say it's a fix. I've already heard it on the internet. But I don't know, it's a risky one.
Chael Sonnen says that despite what's being posted on social media, the fight between Jake Paul and Anthony Joshua likely won't happen. He claims that Jake Paul could even call off the fight on the day of the event if needed, implying that Paul isn't committed to actually facing Joshua.
This is social media, right? But either way, the exact words that I had to read, mark my words, from the author of the statement, right? Mark my words. Some dork whose words don't matter. Mark my words. This fight will not happen. Jake Paul will call off the day of the fight if he has to. But he will not fight Anthony Joshua. Now,
Chael says Jake was smart to keep it simple. I'm going to break his face sounds real and confident. He reminds everyone that Joshua is an Olympic champion, an active elite boxer who's still winning fights, not someone Fury ever faced and collecting titles, which makes him a credible and formidable opponent for Jake Paul.
Joshua came out, he did something very, very wise, even within its simplicity, and Joshua said, I'm going to break his face. Now, I get where that just seems like a simple thing to say, but anything less than I'm going to break his face does start to feel like a work. You have an Olympic champion. You have a gentleman that beat Klitschko. You have a gentleman which, however the story got there, Tyson Fury didn't fight. Now, I'm not saying that Tyson's the one that backed down. But I'm not saying he's not. Fury and Joshua should have fought for over 15 years. Joshua is still fighting, he's still collecting checks, he's still collecting championships. That fight never happened. I mean, this is one hell of a guy to call.
Chael mocks the idea that Jake Paul has a real puncher's chance against Anthony Joshua. Even if Jake lands a wild punch, a 12-ounce glove wouldn't put a 240-pound Olympic-level heavyweight down. It's not just about a knockdown, you'd have to keep Joshua down for a full 10 count, which Chael calls unrealistic, emphasizing that Jake stopping Joshua is laughably far-fetched.
You believe that Jake Paul carries around with him a puncher's chance? Really? So he's got the ability, he's going to throw something from some weird direction. It's going to have so much power, and Anthony Joshua may not see it. And by the way, if he doesn't, it's going to connect him, even though it's a 12-ounce glove, and it's going to knock him out. Now, knock him down, I think you'd be going a little too far. I would definitely take your bet on that, with no limit. But this isn't a knockdown game. You got to knock the guy out. You got to knock him down and then keep him there for an alleged count of 10, which could be any number, but it's an alleged count of 10.
Chael Sonnen points out that Anthony Joshua has never faced someone as inexperienced as Jake Paul since his 6th amateur fight. Joshua has also never had a size advantage like this before, and the only way the fight could seem legitimate, Sonnen says, is if Joshua goes in fully focused, threatening and attempting to break Jake's face with maximum effort.
You want to know the last time that Anthony Joshua fought somebody that had 9 fights? Do you want to know when it was? You want to know when it was? It was the 6th fight of his amateur career. His 6th fight of his amateur career is the only time that he's ever fought somebody with such inexperience as Jake Paul. And the size discrepancy, Joshua's never enjoyed a size benefit like he has going into the fight with Jake Paul. And the only thing about it that could be real or look real or sound real is if he goes out and he plans and he threatens and he does the best of his ability to break Jake's face.
YouTube's Adeo Ladipo points out that seeing the fight billed as Jake Paul versus AJ feels strange, since AJ has never been the underdog or B-side. He notes it might feel that way for Jake Paul's team or fans, but not for him. He frames it as a David versus Goliath scenario, emphasizing the huge size difference. Jake Paul is around 220 pounds, while AJ is an enormous, imposing figure, and says Jake likely realized that in their face-off.
AJ, Jake Paul, or, as the poster says, Jake Paul versus AJ, which is strange, right? I mean, AJ has never been B-side, ever. And look, that doesn't necessarily matter, I guess. I don't think those things should matter. Whose name's first, who walks first, but it is weird to see Jake Paul versus AJ as though Jake Paul is the bigger in this equation. Not for me. Maybe for MVP, Nikisa, Jake Paul, but not for me. I've kind of marked it or titled it David versus Goliath just because of the size difference. Like, Jake Paul's a big guy. He is. He's 6'1", 220. Probably fights around, the 200-pound mark. AJ is an enormous guy. Like, he's a big unit. And I think Jake realized that when they came face to face. I don't know if that was the first time.
In conclusion, Adeo Ladipo believes AJ will take the fight seriously, but he questions whether Jake Paul truly realizes the challenge or is simply delusional. He notes that Americans may undervalue AJ, especially after his losses to Andy Ruiz and Usyk, which could give Jake a slight chance, but he doubts the fight would realistically go beyond 2 rounds.
Doubt that AJ would take this seriously. But for Jake Paul, I do wonder if realization is kicking in, or maybe he is just that delusional where he doesn't care. I do, and I've been sort of corrected by a few people who maybe know better, but I do think the Americans don't credit or rate AJ. I do think there's a bit of that. I remember when AJ did the rounds prior to the Ruiz fight, and there were a few people like, yeah, you're not that good. This was prior to him getting beat by Ruiz. So you can only imagine what it's like after the Ruiz defeat, after the Usyk defeats, and after what happened to Daniel Dubois. So I do think there's a few Americans, and this might be crazy, I think Jake Paul's got a chance. And I know that sounds crazy, but I do think that there are, where I don't believe anyone over here thinks this goes more than around 2 max.
So drop your thoughts in the comments. Did Joe Rogan go too far, or is he just saying what everyone else is thinking? Could Jake Paul's call out for Anthony Joshua actually blow up into something bigger, or is this just another round of circus level chaos from the YouTube boxer? With Rogan roasting the idea, fans arguing non-stop, and the spotlight on Jake hotter than ever, this storyline isn't slowing down anytime soon. Are we watching the build-up to the dumbest fight talk in combat sports, or the genius marketing move of the year? Hit like and subscribe for more.